What is up, everyone? My name will be Josh. This is StrainCentral, and today I am actually finally back. I figured now that I actually look like a proper vice journalist, it's probably time to get back to some weed content. So today I thought I'd actually talk about something that I've been incorporating a lot in my routines recently, and that is CBD. So I've been getting some kind of back-end work stuff done. I've been doing things that aren't directly YouTube related. And it's kind of made me a lot more stoked to actually get back into creating content. I'm also in a really good headspace, and internally, mentally, I'm very happy. So I figured there's never a better time to actually get to talking about something like CBD. So I've talked plenty about CBD before. I've gone into a bunch of different aspects and areas of CBD. But specifically today we're going to be talking about the difference between full spectrum, broad spectrum, and isolate. Because me getting into CBD for muscle relief, pain relief, I've been having a lot of pain in my lower back. Even though I've talked about it many times, didn't really necessarily completely know the difference between the three. So if we're going to put this in very base, very broad terms, this is basically the difference between broad spectrum, full spectrum, and isolate. So full spectrum CBD is basically cannabinoids. There's probably minor bits of THC in it. Obviously hemp standard, so that's 0.3% THC. So think of it as the full spectrum of a plant. You get all of the phytocannabinoids, so CBDA, CBGA, which is technically the mother of all cannabinoids. It's the base of a lot of our favorite cannabinoids. CBG, CBN, CBC even. This is all of the phytocannabinoids along with all the terpenes, which is obviously the base of flavor and effect in terms of synergistic energy and synergistic workings. And then you get the flavonoids, which most people think are the things that are the flavor. It has flav in it, so most people are like, oh, you get the flavor from the flavonoids. All flavor is from terpenes. Flavonoids are specifically more of an antioxidant, so they're really good for your brain, for your body, and they're really good to consume and kind of protect your endocannabinoid system. So they're important, but they're not what actually conduces flavor, which is something I always thought. I think I might just be a stoned idiot, because flavor, it just seemed like it mixed, and then I learned terpenes are pretty much the best friend of all cannabinoids. So what we're talking about as a whole, when it comes to full spectrum anything, is the entourage effect. This is going to be the biggest pro for both full spectrum and broad spectrum, is the entourage effects. And yet again, something I've talked about a billion times. The entourage effect is essentially, if you mix something like THC with another terpene or another cannabinoid, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's like 1 × 10 equals much better effect. That's my stoner math for the day for you. But essentially, the entourage effect is just the fact that all cannabinoids, all terpenes, everything in the cannabis plant, or hemp plant in this case, works together, works synergistically, and it works better when they're together than alone. So, full spectrum, like I just said, full plant, pros, entourage effect, you're gonna get good inflammation reduction is what I've found, and it's a pretty decent pain reliever. So, I find when I use THC doesn't necessarily relieve pain, and it's actually been found in studies that that's the case. THC is not an opiate blocker. It does not necessarily take pain away. THC is very good at distracting from pain, so that's why most pain patients do enjoy THC, but they enjoy the entourage effect because CBD, CBN, CBG, everything working together along with the terpenes are going to actually reduce inflammation and make you feel less pain. So the cons are, full spectrum could be potentially intoxicating. I have found no direct intoxication effects. That being said, my THC tolerance has been high for a billion years. So I don't find anything like an intoxicating effect with full spectrum. But for those that have no THC tolerance at all, it is possible you are going to feel some kind of a minor intoxicating effect. It's also not necessarily good for people that are trying to pass drug tests, because this has the most hemp THC in it of all three. So if you're looking specifically to actually pass a drug test, this is probably not the route to go. So the next one we're going to be talking about is broad spectrum. This is kind of the middle child, doesn't necessarily get the most attention, but it still has a lot of potential. It could be a lawyer one day, but right now is sitting on the couch smoking pot. Broad spectrum is simply kind of the middle ground. It doesn't necessarily have as much THC. Most companies do go for a full THC removal in terms of broad spectrum, but this still is something that may potentially trigger a positive on a drug test. So broad spectrum is for people that don't necessarily want the euphoric effects that are sometimes related with the full spectrum product, and it's something that does have all of the entourage effect potential. So it's going to have all the CBD, CBN, all of the other phytocannabinoids. It is going to have terpenes, but it is usually going to be something that has less, if not all, of the THC removed. So the good thing about broad spectrum is it's not necessarily flavor-wise as hemp forward. The thing I didn't say about full spectrum is it usually is going to taste a lot like the hemp plant, simply because it is mostly hemp. So you're going to get a lot of that like plant-like flavor, a lot of the, I almost just call it green flavor, because fresh hemp does have a very planty type flavor. If you're someone who juices, you're probably familiar with like kale and very green forward flavors. Weed is a very green forward flavor, and that was the most hipster fucking thing I've ever said in my life. If you're familiar with kale. So the pros for broad spectrum, you still get the entourage effect, you still get most of the pain relief, the body relief, but it's not going to be as inherently intoxicating. So since there has been work to actually remove the THC from the hemp, you are pretty much just getting straight phytocannabinoids like CBD, CBG, CBN, the full spectrum, as well as terpenes. So when it comes to cons of broad spectrum, I find I have to usually dose slightly higher than with something like full spectrum, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I still get the entourage effect, I just have to take a slightly higher dose. And sometimes you do find that broad spectrum tends to be cheaper. So I feel like that kind of correlates with cheaper product, higher dose. Yet again, this is one that you may still pass or fail a drug test on. It's kind of in the middle. Some companies do a really good job at completely removing, some don't. I didn't take this and go take a drug test because that would have cost a lot of money. So I don't really know what this specific product is going to be like, but if you're looking to avoid actually popping a drug test, you're better off with broad spectrum, but you're best off with isolate. And in simplest terms, CBD isolate is the isolated form of CBD. So it is pure CBD, no THC. There's really no other plant compounds in it. There's no other phytocannabinoids, there's no other terpenes. So you find with most isolates, it's going to be the most flavorless, the least actual plant tasting, and they're usually pretty easy to flavor. So if you're looking for something that doesn't necessarily taste like hemp, it doesn't taste like a plant, it tastes like whatever they flavor it like, then you should probably go for the CBD isolate type product. So because there's no THC in it, because it is actually isolated CBD, this is usually what you're going to want to go for if you are looking specifically to not actually pop a drug test or to not get any kind of euphoric related effects at all. I personally find with most isolate type products, I normally have to dose a little bit higher. Obviously, there's no entourage effect in play, so it simply makes sense that that's the case. So, I have just talked for like 8 minutes and pretty much given you nothing but an information dump. Enjoy. Now, we'll get to the point. What's actually going to help you choose the product that you want to find? Well, that depends on you and what you want. There's a lot of different things that you should probably look at in terms of choosing the right actual CBD type for you. Do you want to incorporate the entourage effect? Dosing, cost, form of consumption. Do you want therapeutic effects? Do you want intoxicating type euphoric effects? What are you looking for in terms of your CBD product? All of those questions should be asked. If you're leaning towards, a euphoric entourage effect heavy type product and you don't really care about cost, go full spectrum. If you're looking specifically for something that's going to give you zero intoxication but purely medical type therapeutic effects, go towards the isolate. If you're in the middle, fuck it, go for the broad spectrum. It's all specifically up to what you're looking for, and there's a lot of things that you should probably take into account before you actually choose. I've been fucking with a lot of CBD lately, clearly. this is something that I needed to reconfirm in my head. And I actually got sent over a bunch of stuff from Plain Jane that I'll probably be using as like reference points during this video. But they sent me over broad spectrum, they sent me over full spectrum, they sent me over isolate, they sent me over an isolate shatter, and I believe they also sent me over a full spectrum shatter that I haven't actually tried yet. So maybe I'll actually try some of the full spectrum shatter. I haven't taken a dab in quite a while. So hemp dab, fuck it. You know, I'm truly balling out when I have to use a lighter to light my torch. I find it hilarious that they actually put this little, like, I'll show it on screen right now. It's a warning sticker for hemp. So most states, like, I know California has one very similar that I'll also put on screen. And that's the warning for THC, for potentially intoxicating, you know, product. But there's one for hemp. Like, watch out. You might feel a 0.3 THC buzz. It's literally the equivalent of putting a warning label on a non-alcoholic beer, which there might, like, that might actually be something that should be there, but it just makes me laugh. So I'm using the AAS glass, the AS glass piece today. Cheers, guys. I haven't hit a dab in a minute, so let's get it. Hit before Chaz Baker comments, I know. Wow, that is actually the exact flavor I remember. CBD isolate is pretty much the same flavor. CBD of any kind on the spectrum has a very similar flavor. And in all honesty, that was very smooth. I actually have like no tension in terms of wanting to cough my lungs out, which a dab almost always does. So I've been fiending lately. I've been back on the stogs. That is actually smoother than a cigarette, which is probably not saying much because cigarettes are like up there on the harshness level. Very smooth, very cherry forward flavor. That's what I expect every time I consume CBD products. It's always tasted like cherry Robitussin across the board and or straight hemp plant. That's all I really got for you guys today, though. Check out down below. I should have some links to Plain Jane. Thank you, Plain Jane, for sending this over. Appreciate the care package. And I think there's actually a discount link from them for you guys. So I hope everyone's doing well. I know it's been a hot minute since I've actually posted anything on here. On the second channel, I'm going to be doing a podcast soon, so we'll dig into some personal life matters and whatnot over there. But once again, I love all your beautiful faces. I hope you guys are all having wonderful days. If you're going through a rough patch, keep trucking, keep that head up, and realize that on the other side of that tunnel, there's light and there's great things, so fight for it. Alright guys, stay positive, stay medicated. Peace, friends.